Welcome back. So last time things didn't exactly go quite as smoothly as I would have hoped, but we are a little bit further along in the process, as you can clearly see, and we have really gotten this thing down to a science. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me walk you through everything here. All right, so first things first, obviously this has been cut down. I've had the short-barreled shotgun stamped for this for quite some time, and I finally took the time to give that the old snipperoo and press that front sight back on, drill it out, and pin it in place, and she's all squared away. Now the stock has been removed for convenience sake, but that does just slap right back on there. But yeah, she is all squared away, cosmetically speaking, but beyond that, let's talk about the actual shells, the actual ammunition, which was the whole issue last time. To jump back into the past just a little bit here, before I even chop this barrel down, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the experimental loads that I whipped up previously.
Okay, once again, we're back out here. We're trying out same exact loading, basically 20 grain, 25 grain, 30 grain of blue dot, and I know blue dot's not exactly ideal for this anymore, but it's all I've got due to the pandemic. So we're gonna try it out, see what happens. I've got this sealed with water glass this time. Hopefully that's a bit better of a seal, and it won't just pop right out the front from the primer, and we'll get some powder burn. So let's see what happens. And one more time, here we go, 3, 2, 1. That was something. Okay, 618, actually had something fire. And as I thought, 20 grains of blue dot might be a little on the shorter side, but that's fine. I'd rather be short than high, so great. So water glass, yes, as I thought, that's what they used to use in the old black powder days. So that was 20 grains of blue dot. This is 25 grains. So might be being just a little hasty here, but I'm going to try and shoot it by hand. And yeah, hopefully it won't blow up and kill me, but if it does, you know, hey, no problem. Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1. Woohoo! I'm just so happy that this is working now. It's ecstatic. What do we got? 681 feet per second, which is still super duper slow. Blue dot's a slow burning powder, so I'll probably try and mix that up. But it's shooting, and I see that slug impacting way down there in the field, and that's just such a good feeling. So let's step it up to 30 grains, and it's a little stuck in there. And see what happens. Last shot of the day, I only brought 3 shells out just to see if they would work, and they're working. So we're stepping up to 30 grain. .858 feet per second. That was pretty stout on the shoulder, but that's what we're looking for here. So great, we're gonna work up some new lows and go from there.
So massive successes there. That was pretty great, but it could be better. So one of the issues that I ran into there is that if you take a look at these shells, they are, as you can clearly see, stonking massive. So to put this in a bit of perspective here, the discrepancy that you're seeing here between the outer and the inner diameter is something that has to be overcome by the actual projectile. So the internal diameter here is actually the bore diameter, and the outer diameter is the chamber. For some strange reason, there's just a gigantic difference between those two. And since that's the case, when it steps down from the chamber down to the bore, there's going to be a lot of gas escaping around your wadding in projectile that just kind of bleeds out and will shoot past the, in this case, the slugs that I've been testing, and you can see that in slow motion. It just kind of, there's a huge cloud that comes out before that slug actually makes it out there. So what do we do about that? So that's where this little guy comes in. This is, it's just a cup. It's literally just a little cup, but it is, the important part, printed in a flexible TPU filament, which means the whole thing flexes quite a bit and does not just kind of break apart in a brittle fashion like most 3D printed things do. So when the expanding gases hit this skirt here, fill up that center cavity, they will expand and push out on that skirt, which will press up against the bore walls and ideally give it a little bit better of a gas seal, keep that gas trapped behind everything that it should be, getting us better velocity and less of a caustic situation in the barrel itself. Previously, I was using just corkboard that was cut and stamped out as a wad, which was just not great because it's, if you've ever seen corkboard, it's not fine. It's very, very coarse and it just kind of crumples and falls apart. It's not good for something like this. So what do? Convenient that this is a 23mm gun, because as it happens, they make wine corks that are exactly 23mm. It's the most perfect fit. I don't have to do anything other than chop these down just a hair, given the case capacity, but just a hair, and they are perfect. I could probably seal them just by pressing in like that, and as you can see, yeah, I'm not getting that out of there without driving it out from the rear. Luckily, I haven't primed this one, but anyway, that's our wads. So we've got that all sorted out. Slugs are not the point of a shotgun, right? The point of a shotgun is, well, it's in the name, isn't it? Shot. So what do we do about that? We've been working on the slugs for quite some time, but for actual birdshot, buckshot, etc., what do we do about that? You need a shot cup, right? Well, that's where these little guys come in. So these were a gigantic pain to get a hold of. It's a clear plastic tubing meant for retail stuff. Mostly you put I don't know, like a toothbrush or something in there and seal both ends, but not the point. These were so difficult to track down and get in just the right size. So let's put that aside for now. We went originally with some samples sent by a mega monolithic plastics company who I won't name, but they sent me some samples because I requested them, and this is the one that I went with ultimately. So here's our original sample. As you can see, it slips right in there, has no problems whatsoever from any direction, any orientation. It's just good to go. Now, since these are industrial scale things, you have to buy them in bulk. They don't really make them with a handful in mind, like is my application here. It's meant for like retail stores like Walmart or whatever that go through thousands and thousands and thousands of little tubies like this. So point is, I picked up, because I had to, 5,000 of these little teeny guys. But here's the thing, the ones that they sent me were not the correct size. They were about the size of this thing, and no matter how hard you press, no matter how you try to finagle this in there, would not work. So that was a whole fiasco that took about a year to get sorted out. But they eventually did do the right thing and send me another order of ones that were properly sized. Although, to note, not quite as properly sized as the original samples, which sucks. But these will, with enough force, fit in there, which honestly is probably better. But they're so difficult to get in there, because that's a better seal for the whole system. That's our shot cup. Now, depending on the length of the wadding and of the shot cup itself, because I have to cut each of these down by hand, I got them oversized for a reason, to be able to accommodate anything at all. But depending on that, they can fit a wide variety of amounts of payload. So this is double-aught buckshot right here. As you can see, they fit 4 of them in there quite easily. A little too easily, actually. There's quite a bit of wasted space in there, which is unfortunate. Double-aught is my favorite, but it's not really the ideal caliber. So if you're familiar with 12 gauge, those will fit 3 pellets of double-aught buckshot per stack. This will fit 4 rather easily, and with quite a bit of wasted room in there, but 4 per stack. So we're looking at about maybe 12 pellets of double-aught buckshot, give or take, which is actually a little on the low side for the payload to this. The slugs are just kind of at the threshold of 1,000 grains, and the birdshot loads that I've whipped up, 800 grains of birdshot in there, which is quite substantial. As per usual, I've talked way too much. Let's again jump back to the past here and see how some of our slug loads did. Alrighty, so we're back out here again. I've got 4 more shells loaded up with 20, 25, 30, and 35 grains, but these are sealed a little bit better. Righto, once again, safety is off. We are all primed and ready to go. Let's see what happens. This is, once again, 20 grains. I'm shooting it right-handed, so it looks a little bit better in the camera. Wonderful.
Okay, so about 240 feet per second, not what we're hoping for, but 20 grains is pretty light. So just keep on going, see what happens here, and we're all good to go. This is 25 grains, by the way. Whew, a bit of spice to it. $596, just about 600. Actually, that's looking a little bit better. I can't compare it out here in the field to how it looked before on the slow-mo, but from what I'm seeing, that gas seal was pretty great. So we're gonna step it up to our 30 grain of blue dot here and see how that one does. We're at 600, and again, we're shooting for about 1,000. If that trend continues, we'll probably be at about 900 here, but we will see in 3, 2, 1. Woo! A little spice to that one. Well, that's interesting, 705. One other thing to notice, or to mention rather, the barrel is cut down now from where it was before. What was it before, like 26-ish inches, don't quote me on that, but she's about 13 now. So there is that to consider as well. We're trying to step the numbers back up. So 35 grains, blah, 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 I'm talking too much. All right, 3, 2, 1. Quite a bit of kick on that. And 891, which is about what we're looking to be. So that'll pretty much do it for the slugs. We're again pushing that 900 feet per second mark. So I will probably, next time I come out, push those to about 37.5 grains of blue dot here. But yeah, that's about good for these. Proof of concept with the short barrel and that gas sealant, which in the slow-mo looks very good. You'll see that in a moment here, or maybe you already have. But anywho, slugs are pretty much good. Next time we'll be working on some buckshot and birdshot. I've got some funky stuff going on with them, but you'll see that momentarily here. So I'd call that pretty good for the slugs. 1,000 grain slugs, give or take, going at 1,000 feet per second, give or take. Pretty good. I guess the next step is some actual physical targets, but we'll worry about that next time. Alrighty.
All right, and that catches us up to where I'm at rather nicely. So next up, we have our 37.5 grain blue dot load of our slugs. Get a chronograph on that, and I will be having an actual physical, tangible reactive target on that one for once as well. Try and get that on the slow-mo. But we've got a whole bunch of other stuff to try out as well. For example, our birdshot load, another birdshot load at a slightly lower charge. Our number 4 buckshot, which I'm liking the number 4 a little bit better, because as mentioned, the double-aught buckshot doesn't really fit in these shot cups too efficiently, but number 4, perfect. So yeah, this is 40 pellets of number 4 shot, and then of course we have our double-aught buckshot 12 pellet load. So let's go see what happens.
Okay, we're back out again. I've got our same old slugs with 37.5 grains of blue dot. We're gonna chronograph it, and we also have a physical target, a watermelon, because of course. 3, 2, 1. All right. Uh, 934, so I'm satisfied with that. All right, so that one did pretty well. We're gonna try out one of our first birdshot loads here. This is 30 grains of blue dot with about approximately 800 grains of, I think this is number 7 shot. We'll see how she does on the lighter load. So I stepped down the powder charge just a little bit, and obviously shot acts differently than a slug, so we will see what happens. 3, 2, 1. $514. Need to work on that a little bit. As you can see, the whole thing is completely plastered with birdshot on the entire, this is, what is that, like a 2-foot wide pumpkin, give or take? So as best as I can tell, there's a little bit of separation between the wadding and the shot cup on that one. From what I can tell, sort of, maybe, I can't see too well on the tiny screen of that thing. The shot canister, so to speak, was bonked by everything behind it, which disrupted that pattern. So we'll see if this one does the same thing. This one's 35 grains of blue dot with the same load, payload anyway. And this one's loaded a little bit differently. That first one was basically like a sealed canister. This one's more open. 3, 2, 1. Uh, 519, no, that's still not great. Okay, so a bit tighter of a shot column on that one, less disruption looked like because it was loaded better, which makes sense, but still relatively slow speed, so might have to try and step that up a little bit. I don't want to overcharge it too much, but you know, birdshot's not really what I'm focusing on here. Speaking of which, this is double-aught buckshot with 30 grains of blue dot. It's 12 pellets, which is approximately a payload of 700 grains, give or take. 3, 2, 1. Uh-oh. Okay, that didn't go well. What happened there? So that was disappointing. Probably just didn't seal something right in there. That's a problem we were having previously. I could, in retrospect, now that I'm thinking about it, I could put some sealant a little further down in the column here instead of just on the very top. That way you for sure get a proper seal on it. Of course, that comes at the risk of potentially getting the powder wet, but something to consider for next time. So this is 30 grains of blue dot once again with number 4 buckshot, 40 pellets of it at approximately payload of 820 grains. See what happens. This one, it seems like it's sealed fine. It's rattling a little bit because I don't have a proper cap on the shot cup, but yeah, we'll see. Number 4 buckshot, here we go. Yeah, not feeling that one either. So we got 300 feet per second. What happened there? We got the slugs all squared away, but clearly there's a little bit more work to do. That's what it's supposed to look like.
So obviously that didn't go quite so well. Question is, what happened? The central column of the birdshot, this is the gas sealant, the center column was just blown completely out. The plastic shot cup was so wedged in there that the bottom had completely blown out the front, while the sides were still essentially fused to the casing walls. So yeah, that might have played a bit of a role in it. And again, our gas seal, which is supposed to, you know, expand and seal, did just that, except it sealed directly to the inner case wall and was just embedded still at the very bottom. So interesting, very interesting. Let's load up a couple more of these, seal them properly, and see what happens this time around. I picked up from my good buddies at MasterCar a 23mm hole punch, which I've been using to make some cardboard overshot cards, as well as some cotton ones as well, which I can then impregnate with the sealant and slap down in there, and hopefully that'll keep the powder from getting wet, it seeping down into it, and we'll just get a better seal down further in, and we'll see what happens. I'll load these up. I'll see you out there in a minute. Oh, and forgot to mention, since these original canisters, the plastic shot cups that I was using, were a little bit too tight in the shells, that means I have the unenviable task of going through and hand filing every single one of these. Trying this again real quick, lightning round, just 3 shells to try out, make sure they're working basically. It's birdshot, and here we go. No dice.
Blazing fast 96 feet per second, by the way. 35 grain powder charge with number 4 buckshot. Okie dokie, here goes. Yep, same exact thing. Final shell of the day, 35 grain charge with our double-aught buckshot. Hazard a guess, same thing, right? Well, let's take a look-see. Ooh, 175, blazing fast, spicy. Yeah, ooh, yeah, same thing, that one. Okay, well, again, there's your problem. Some of that sealant is getting stuck to just a teeny tiny little bit of it. I could pull this one out with my bare hands, but as you can see, it's just blasting straight through the base of it. There's your answer. I'm gonna seal these probably above the cork wad instead of down at the base, and that should solve our problem. So we're back out again. I'm not even going to introduce these. This is birdshot. Let's see how it does. 35 grains. Yeah. The number 4 buckshot. See how this does. Same everything. Okay, well that was different. So this will be our double-aught buck, although it is a little different. It's a grand total of 768 grains. Managed to fit 15 pellets into it, so I'm expecting nothing different here, but we will see what happens. Ooh, that one worked, and we got just shy of 700, 689 feet per second. Okay, I don't know what was different about that one, but hey, it worked. So good news on that one, but we do have 3 additional shells which were loaded a little differently, and I think these are going to be the way to go from now on, so hopefully we'll have some better luck. This is our birdshot once again. That's more like it. 760, and I smacked the crap out of my chronograph. Let's see how that looks. So this is our improved number 4 buckshot. Beautiful. Uh, 633 feet per second, by the way. Not great, but hey, it's working. All right, final shot. This is the big boy, double-aught buckshot, 15 pellets, just a hair under 800 grains total. And let's see what happens. Ooh, spicy. 717. Again, still not quite where we want it to be, but yeah, they're definitely doing what they're supposed to now, so cool. So that's that. We're probably good 90% of the way done with those, then just need to work out the right powder charge. I'm hesitant to throw about 40 grains of powder behind these, but you know, Blue Dot's a slower burning powder, not suited for short barrels. I would like to use like a red dot or something, but not what I got right now. So yeah, good news. Got a technique of loading them that's all sorted away, and I will show you that right now when we get back to the shop. So how do we load one of these things properly? Well, let's take a look. We have our brass shot shell here. It's been put through both the ultrasonic and the brass tumbler is all cleaned up and ready to go. We have our CCI 209 primers, and we're just gonna slap that sucker in there. So we come over here to our press. This whole setup is a little jank and bootleg, but hey, are you new here? Because that's pretty much everything I do. So I've got some neodymium magnets slapped in there, which holds the primer in place.
And that's just enough to get that primer started. And it's a little hard to see from this angle, but I also have a little steel nipple, for lack of a better word, stuck under there as well to finish sealing that in. So basically line it up properly, and you know, a jig or something to help with alignment would be really nice here, but at the current moment that's all a little outside of my scope right now. Maybe someday, but for now this will do just fine. Just crank that sucker in there, and there you have a primed cartridge. Now that's not primed all the way in, it's got just a little bit of a lip there, so ordinarily I would go back in and rotate that and gently work it in, but for just demonstration purposes, that's pretty much the process. So next up we have our powder load. We'll get that ready here. As you can imagine, it's pretty rudimentary, but we just have a basic powder scale here that measures in grains, and since we've determined that about 40 of Blue Dot is the sweet spot, I'm going to go ahead and load that up right about there. So I'm going to take our shot shell and just dump her on in. Now you'll notice I missed a bunch of it and it scattered throughout because I didn't use my funnel. Just for demonstration purposes on camera, it's a little difficult to get that all together. But just pretend those all made it in there, and this isn't dangerous or unkempt whatsoever. And hey, there we have 40 grains of powder all loaded up. Realistically, probably only about 37 made it in there, but shh. Then next up, of course, we have our gas sealing puck. We just kind of slap that little guy in there and jam it in. In you go. Get that as far in there as I can manage with my human hands, and then we'll skip ahead to our tooling. So here, of course, we have our incredibly high-tech arrangement of a really cheap Harbor Freight drill press and the scientific pressing stick, as I have dubbed it. It's just literally just a flagpole that I trim down slightly to, you know, press, as you might imagine. So smack that sucker in there, and in lieu of a regular old reloading press with, you know, dies and all the fancy going-ons, no, we have literally just a stick and a drill press, but it works. Let me demonstrate. Crank that sucker on in down there and work that stick back out. There you are. All right, and you will not be able to see it because that is recessed quite far in there, and there's no way the light is going to shine at just the right angle to capture that, but that is fully depressed in there, and there's a little bit of concave deformation to it to have it really pressed up against that powder. Next up, of course, we have our wadding, which, as I mentioned, we've been using these 23mm corks, wine corks, for that, but they are just a bit too long for proper case lengths. So we go ahead and chop these directly in half with our bandsaw. And I know, before you say this is incredibly safe and I'm in absolutely no danger whatsoever. All right, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's all of them. So we're looking pretty good. And here we have just 2 little waddings all sorted out. They're not cut super duper evenly because look at my setup, but again, they will do the job just fine. If you just do this, it doesn't work quite right because these, despite being 23mm, don't make too good of a seal. Once again, with this project, I've been kind of loath to admit it, but we are harkening back to the black powder days, meaning we're going to take our wadding and wrap it in basically a cotton sleeve. This is a shop towel, of course, but there's a reason for that. Let me show you. So we wrap it in that, jam it in, get it about flush, and then basically just rip off all the excess. Now, if I were doing this with actual proper cotton, such as a cut-up t-shirt or whatever, there would be no way I could just rip that off, or at least not anywhere near as easily as this. So then, once again, we take our good old pressing stick and jam it in. Back to our drill press. Get some real compression in there. And she's all ready to go. Alright, so here we are up in the kitchen. Now we need to seal this wadding in place before anything else. And before I was trying, sealing right on top of the powder or up the very top of the stack. Now the sweet spot seems to be basically right on top of all that wadding, and with the added benefit of the quote-unquote cotton wad shop towel surrounding that the cork, it soaks up all of our sealant, good old water glass, and forms a very, very good seal. So let's go ahead and do that. And about one full spooge is all you need. Just kind of work that around the sides, since obviously the sides are the most important part. And we'll give that basically a full 24 hours to cure, and you will be set. But of course, like all good cooking shows, you have one prepared in advance. So you can see, kind of anyway, that is all sealed in there, dried up, and good to go. So the only thing left to do for this one, or any other ones that are like it, is tap in the payload and she'll be good to go. So here's our 950 to 1,000 grain slug. Just gonna jam that one in there. That one's actually a little tight. I'm gonna have to whap that one in. And we're back, and that is all fully seated in there. And since these slugs are true to bore and by extension true to the inner diameter of the shells, they don't require any sort of extra assistance to get a tight seal. And as such, you can just drop this in right over top of them. Once again, just a full dropper of it, and give that a good 24 hours to cure. And that's our slug. But what about our shot? Well, I have another one prepared just for that. So we take our already trimmed down and grinded down and fit as well as I can shot cup, and then our payload, which this time happens to be 15 pellets of double-aught buckshot, 15 of them, 5 in a stack, 3 stacks, and that's all ready to go, ready to be loaded up. And since these are hand fit, for lack of a better term, they tend to, for the most part, just drop right in just like that, and that is the full height of it. So then we take some overshot cards. This is once again our shop towel because I use them for everything. Just kind of slap those on top of there, and then we take our cardboard overshot card, slap that on top of all that. Once again, we take our sealant and just kind of drop that in along the edges there. And once again, we wait about 24 hours for that to cure. And you might be thinking, oh, well, there's a lot of waiting involved in this, right? Well, if you're this far along in this whole project, you're used to that already, aren't you? And in just a little while, they'll be all ready to go, and we'll take them out.
Hello, my friends, this is RPG Rasha, and today, we're already sick of doing this stupid accent. Kyle, I don't know how you did it for so long. Anyway, KS-23, all squared away. Gonna put it through its paces today. So this will be the final time we're taking it out, at least for this video. There's plenty more to come, I'm sure. But for now, this will be the last time we're taking it out. And as such, I have a full assortment of loadings here to try out. Starting from the left, we've got birdshot, number 4 buck, double aught, and 1, 2, 3 slugs with another slug for something later on. So we got a full belt, and that feels pretty good. All right, so as mentioned, it's gonna be 2 shots of birdshot followed by number 4 buckshot, double aught buckshot, and then slugs. And just for you guys, since this is probably gonna be the last time I'm taking this out for this video, we are going to take off the bitch pad. It's nothing but raw steel on my soft, fleshy shoulder, so that'll be fun. This will be 2 shots of birdshot. I believe it's number 4 birdshot, about 800 grains of it, give or take. And we got 2 2-liters here. Good old Hickok 45 style. So, oh, that's not good. I got a chip in it. Anyway, birdshot, here we go. So it seems like, unfortunately, my stop here for the magazine tube isn't sticking out quite as far as it ought to. I'll have to do something about that later. Hopefully for now it's not too much of a problem, but you might see a bit more of that. Anyway, this is second bird shot. It's more like it. Oh, and by the way, if you've seen me kind of struggling to get these into the chamber, well, the reason is twofold. One, these shells are ever so slightly too long, by maybe 1/8 of an inch. I need to trim them down just a little bit. And two, they are so absurdly heavy, being full brass and thick brass, that the shell elevator sometimes has a bit of trouble mechanically just picking up all that weight. So as a reminder, those things are about 1/4 pound a piece, I forget, but they are very, very substantial things. So that's why sometimes I struggle to get a few in succession. So after some brief field modification, by that I mean just bending a piece of metal slightly outward, hopefully we won't have that same magazine tube issue, but we'll see. It would be nice to get a few of these off in succession, but they are a little finicky. As mentioned, once again, these are number 4 buckshot. And this teeny tiny little piece of metal being the sole piece of contact with my shoulder here, the bird shot was not fun, so this is going to be progressively worse here. Here we go. So unfortunately this shell is just slightly out of spec and doesn't want a chamber. So much for that one. Rather than let a perfectly good 2 liter go to waste, so shoot it with something that works. Unfortunately, some of the very distal ends of these shells were just a slightly oversized, and I did trim most of them down. I must have neglected to do that one, but these ones, as far as I'm aware, are just fine and will chamber without any problems. So hopefully you won't have any problems with the magazine tube or chambering them, and we'll get 2 off at once here. This is a double-aught buck, by the way. I see what happens. I don't like cooperating. Anyway, double-aught buckshot. Well, that's unfortunate. If those other 2 didn't work, this one's probably not going to either. Let's see what happens. Nope, same thing. All right, that sucks. So all of those shells, the birdshot, buckshot, bigger buckshot, and slugs, they're all loaded identically, so I have no idea why they would be doing that. That's incredibly frustrating and just really unfortunate, because I was looking forward to those ones more than anything else, but oh well. These are going to be our slugs, and as we've established, they should work fine, but man, we'll see in a moment here. Slugs with no rubber butt pad. I see what happens here. Ooh, that's stout. Oh, that's nasty. We got 1 slug left, and instead of shooting melons or 2 liters or whatever, I figured why not something a bit more substantial. Here we have a surplus helmet, affectionately known as the Pisgate, give or take. But yeah, we're going to shoot this. These are 3A rated. We'll see how that holds up. I have a lovely volunteer here, alas. But yeah, we'll shoot it with the slug and see what happens. I'll do my very best not to miss, because this is my last shot. I think we hit it. So as it turns out, these are in fact rated for 3A, which is most common pistol rounds and shotgun calibers, slugs included. And it did stop that slug from penetrating. Unfortunately, if you can see here, here's our impact, tore through the cover naturally, but the actual material inside, let's get a good angle on that, yeah. Here's your inside. The back plate, back face deformation is substantial, and if you did get hit by one of these, no, it wouldn't penetrate, but you wouldn't have much left in there, as is evident by our skull that you'll see there. That's it's about a tennis ball sized hole in the side of your head there. Wonderful.
Throughout this entire project, there is one thing in particular that I've been interested in finding out. Since these shells are so massively thick, so extra turbo, stupidly thick, how well would one of these hold up to being fired outside of the gun? No chamber, no gun, no barrel, no nothing, just shell itself. Any other round would, you know, just make itself a firecracker and split and just not have a good time. But these, I have a funny feeling with how thick these are. They might just act as a barrel all on their own and might get a little bulge, ooh, here or there, but I think they'll be all right. But we have to find out. So I was thinking to myself the other day, how can I rig one of these up to fire all on its own, right? I could stick a torch on it, or maybe set up a mouse trap or something. Like, man, if only I had some sort of spring activated mechanism attached to a trigger that I could use to set one of these off outside of a barrel. Now, listen, I really, really hate typecasting myself. Like, I don't want to be known as just the guy who did that stupid meme shotgun a while back with the sawn off barrels. I've done more than that. I have an entire channel of other stuff, some memes, some shit posts, some decent information, I like to think anyway. I don't want to be that guy who just does dumb things with the one shotgun. However, please don't laugh. Yeah, so this is it. This is my solution. Like, I need an exposed firing pin that I can set off with a trigger. Surprise, this is it. And these shells just so happened, serendipitous as it is, happened to be the exact perfect size to sit just where they need to be for that firing pin to smack it. So this is it. This is how we're doing it, Ioka style. This is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. Obviously, I'm not going to be shooting this by hand. I still think it'll be fine, but it's going to have a very, very long string attached to it. And God help me.
So we are rapidly running out of daylight, so let's just go ahead and get this done. Amazing! Not to worry, the other one isn't live this time. But, wow! The other shell that was just there to hold it in place didn't go anywhere. But this one, as far as I can tell, on the surface is completely unscathed. And let me try and chamber that and see if it'll fit. But yeah, no, completely and utterly fine. That was a hell of a bang as well, and quite a lot of recoil. So fascinating. So here we have our bare shell. Gonna try and load it, see if it's got any deformation or anything that'll stop it from chambering. And it does look like it might. Give it a better shot there. Looks like, yeah, the front of it. With the naked eye, I can't see hardly anything out of spec, but it just barely doesn't want to get in there. So unfortunately, no. Can't really reuse that one, but that would probably survive being fired all on its own quite a few times. Apparently we lost that first slow-mo footage, so we're doing it again. So as per the first time, our shell seems perfectly fine, at least to the naked eye. I'm sure it has some flaring at the muzzle, for lack of a better word, as it turned into anyway. So yeah, we'll try and fit this one back into the gun at some point, but probably once we get back to the shop, take some measurements on it and see just how deformed it is. But just looking at it, looks fine, right? Since I had a little bit of revision to do on some of these other shells, I figured I might as well touch up that one number 4 buckshot that didn't want a chamber. So this is going to be that one. To give you a frame of reference for just how tight the tolerances are on these shells and on the chamber, basically I just took some 220 grit sandpaper and twisted it. Yeah, like 10-15 seconds, it was done, and now it fits perfectly. So that's how tight we're talking here. Anyway, this is going to be that one. Apparently, one melon is enough body protection for our number 4 buckshot loading, because this one is mostly okay. Neat. So that's just about gonna wrap things up out here, but I would be very remiss if I didn't get my double aught working. So I've got one more load all squared away and put together here with 15 pellets of double aught buckshot, and I sealed the absolute hell out of it. So this one should work just fine, fingers crossed. So how do we close this out? Rigged up a very special angle. I call it the Chechen cam. So that's going to about wrap it up for this project. While it's obviously still not perfect, still has some minor flaws to work out, I'm happy to call it finished. Now the question remains, where do we go from here, right? As is tradition, now that we've laid the groundwork, laid the foundation, where else is there to go? Memes.
As always, thank you very much to every last one of my patrons. Let's be completely honest, I don't deserve any of you, but you're here anyway and you're helping make this all happen, so thank you. For anyone else out there who might be thinking about joining said Patreon, don't. You get nothing out of it, apart from some updates every now and then, but basically nothing. But if you want to anyway, I can't stop you. There's also a Discord. You don't have to be part of the Patreon for that. Anybody can join. Although, once again, I wouldn't really recommend it. It gets pretty spicy in there. I'm sorry this one turned out so absurdly long. I cut out dozens upon dozens of hours of video footage to try and condense this as much as possible, but there was only so much I could do with it. But hey, if you're the kind of person who skipped all the way to the very end just to see the stupid thing shoot, yeah, I totally get it. I don't blame you one bit. I would too. As always, there's more in the pipeline, so stay tuned.